All right, and welcome back to the show. This is Good Morning Kenya, and what was running just earlier on, that is one of the segments we run here on Good Morning Kenya. That is Code 254, questions about children being born out of wedlock. Of course, one thing that really grapples quite a number of people, as some will say that yes, children come from God and we cannot do anything about that. Some saying that is actually your mistake. So really, a lot of divergent views amongst Kenyans concerning children born out of wedlock. But then again, like I said, that's also one of the segments which we run here on this show, Code 254, where we just get to seek Kenyans' views concerning topical issues and what is affecting the society at large. But as of now, we want to switch off to the next segment, that is Family Check. And like I said, we will be having the discussion concerning reading culture in Kenya. Back in the day, reading was really a thing, interesting, exciting. A number of people loved it, regardless of age, both young, old, middle. But as of now, things have changed. What really happened? Where did the change begin? And I'll be speaking to Ambassador Max Kahinde, who is a former ambassador, worked as a diplomat, an ambassador, as well as a deputy ambassador, and also couples up as an author. He'll be talking to us more concerning reading culture, ways in which you can revive that culture, because reading is good for the betterment of you as a person. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Karibu sana. So just before we move to the reading culture, I've just mentioned you were a former ambassador,
yes,
deputy ambassador,
yes,
an author, so many things into one. How were you balancing all of this?
Thank you, Doreen.
Yeah.
It might look like a very heavy load, but it is not.
Right.
Over time, one develops ambitions.
Okay.
My first ambition was to be a diplomat, not an ambassador, but a diplomat working for Kenya. And there is a reason why I wanted to be an ambassador, a diplomat. Secondly, I knew I would retire someday. The second segment of the ambitions is, what do you do after you retire?
Okay.
And I knew I was going to write. But it so happens that in the year 2000, before I retired, I actually wrote a book.
Wow.
While I was still working in the diplomatic service. So it's a question of priorities over time. Yes.
So writing for you obviously began much earlier.
To surprise you is that when I was in secondary school, I actually attempted to write a book.
Yeah.
It never saw daylight.
Why was that?
I think I was ambitious when I was too young, and I did not know that it was not just a question of pen and paper. I gave the book to the late Ambassador Kiplagat, who was working at the Church House. After he did not respond for about 2 months, I felt that I was not getting the service I needed. I took it out of him. I worked on it again. When I was at the University of Nairobi, I gave it to Okot Bitek. Unfortunately, soon after that, he left the university. I don't know what happened to that manuscript up to now.
Wow. But you still continued. You still
yes,
felt the need.
yes,
You wanted
yes.
to be, like you just mentioned, quite a number of ambitions, especially when you were young. You still felt the need, I want to write, I want to author books.
Yes. Now, this relates very much to the topic of the day.
Yeah.
Because from the time I was very young, I developed a reading culture myself. That is at the individual level. And I was fortunate enough to go to a secondary school where we had a lot of books, both in what we used to call the main library for the school and also in the houses where I used to sleep. I was a boarding student. And let me tell you, I plowed through those books. I did. And I still continue reading up to now. Yes.
Right, and you've just mentioned, what we actually want to discuss right about the reading culture. And like you were having this conversation even before we came on air, and you were saying back in the day, when you look at how it was in the 70s and in the 80s, in those early years, reading was really a thing. People enjoyed reading. When you look at books that were really read in those times, books like probably The Concubine, Betrayal in the City, they were not just set books for high schoolers, but they're also being read by much matured people. What really changed?
I'll take you back a little bit.
Okay.
Before the African writers came into the scene.
Yeah.
When we were growing up in, say, the late 60s and early 70s, the African writers were not quite popular. There were not many, actually. If you look at the history of Chinua Achebe,
Right.
Wole Soyinka,
Yeah.
Aikwe Iyama, Semben Osman, they are much, 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 much later. In those days, we used to read books written by white people. There were books like James Hadley Chase, with a whole series. There were books like Beagles, talking about a white boy, the way he grew up, he became a pilot, and he became a hero. Later on, we were introduced to things like Shakespeare. This was a new piece altogether. And then all of a sudden, there was the dawn of the African writer. What was interesting was that the books were very few. Because you could have one James Hadley Chase bought by a certain friend, and you would borrow it after he has finished. And before you finish, it is booked. We used to call it booking.
Right.
It's booked by so-and-so, booked by so-and-so, booked by so-and-so.
Yeah.
So a book used to go around until the cover is gone. You don't even know
The
how
top,
the cover looked like.
how, yeah.
Yeah, but we enjoyed that. We really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Now, there were not so many avenues for having fun or distractions, like the internet.
Yeah.
And we did not have money for movies. So for us, what kept us going were the books and magazines. And I come from the suburbs of Nairobi. The more adventurous boys used to go to Nairobi School, to St. Mary's, and in the dustbins they would come with magazines which have been thrown by the boys who are reading them.
Yeah.
And we would scramble for them and read them. And then there was a little magazine like Spearman and things like that. So that's the way we entertained ourselves. We didn't have a lot of entertainment. So the book was a form of entertainment for us. Yes.
You've mentioned something about, you know, when you're just trying to compare how reading was back in the day and why it was more compared to how it is now. And you've mentioned something about we didn't have many African writers. So even if it's, you know, reading of content, it was mostly content from the West.
Yes, it was.
And even when you look at now, that is also what most young people would prefer. Like, for instance, I'm reading a book currently, Outliers, which is a book by Malcolm Gladwell that talks about success stories. It's not an African book. And most young people would say that most of our African content is not relatable. Maybe we can talk about the book Villains of Molo by Kinyanjui Kombani, which is sort of relatable because it talks about the clashes of 1992, because that is the background. But some would say that most books, especially that maybe the young people may want to read, is not relatable. Do you share the same sentiments?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I would say yes, because every culture produces books relating to what is going on at that particular time.
Okay.
If you find books on clashes in Molo or elsewhere, that is a fact. It happened during that particular time. If you go to the age, let's start a bit earlier,
Okay.
in the 19th century,
Yeah.
you find amongst the British, one of the most exciting writers was Rider Haggard. You find a book like Alan Quatermain or King Solomon's Mines, because the British were focusing on colonizing Africa. That is what they were focusing on. You go back a bit and find someone like Charles Dickens, and what was happening in England at that particular time.
Yeah.
So books relate to the times they are written. They are real. So if the Kenyan student or personality cannot relate to the books which are being written now, it means they themselves are alienated.
Wow.
Their focus is not who we are. I always say, who are we? We have been made something else so that we enjoy something from outside.
Okay.
But this was the training that we got from the white man. We have to run away from that.
So this notion of mostly young adults, that most of these books are not relatable, because it's very interesting also when you just look at, you know, at the city center where they normally sell these books, and even as you look at how young people pick these books, they don't pick African writers' books. They would pick books from the West. You know, because for them, they feel like if someone is talking about success stories, someone is talking about relationships, then I feel I'm relating to it. So is this notion of most of our African books are not relatable just a perception?
I think, as I said before, it relates to our notion of who we are.
Okay.
If you look at young students, and even during my time,
Yeah.
if you graduate from the University of Nairobi, and someone else graduates from the University of Oxford, you give more respect to the person who has graduated outside.
Oh, yeah. True.
Even today, our young students, I have a daughter, my little girl, Shiro, and Wamboi Kahende. And what she would like to do is to go to America for her degree. She just finished her Form 6. There's nothing wrong with it. While we have institutions here which can offer degrees, her peers want to go out there for their education. She also would like to follow, and I will not interfere with her. This is what she wants to do. So we prefer things which are from out there instead of what we're producing here during our time, because maybe we couldn't afford it. Going to the University of Nairobi was the thing, or Makerere, or Dar es Salaam. Now, if you tell somebody to go to Makerere today, of the young generation, they will ask you a question. No, I want to go to America, I want to go to Canada, I want to go to South Africa, I want to go to Australia. That's the vogue at the moment. Who has failed? I think it's us. We have not made ourselves attractive, both in education and in the preference of things we are doing, including the books we are reading, maybe the fashion, the way you are wearing, the way I'm wearing. So I think the African personality has got to encompass a bigger area than what the problem is not in one area, it's everywhere. We have been made to feel that outside there, things foreign are better than things local. That's why you're reading the book you're reading.
Outliers.
Instead of reading my book.
I'll be reading your book after I finish with the Outliers. But then again, how can we change that perception? Because we can sit here and really talk about, we need to ensure that we get back to that reading culture. Just like the way we were beginning and you were saying, back in the day, reading was a thing. Not just for the sake of entertainment, but also for the sake of knowledge. So we can actually sit here and say we need to go back to reading culture. It is important for intellect. But how can we change that perception?
I think let's go back to a definition of reading culture.
Okay.
So that we can be on the same wavelength with whoever is with the audience.
Yeah.
That reading really is the ability to obtain meaning from words.
Okay.
Now, it presupposes that one has been to school, so that you can read. And one of the things which has happened is that the focus on education in this country has been very great in Kenya. Not only after independence, but even before. We had independent schools, like the one in Githunguri, where President Kenyatta was the principal. Before he embarked on his career in politics. It churned out teachers who spread through not only central Kenya, but elsewhere. Now, that was a good foundation. Now, with the independence, we had the policy by the government that we must fight certain ills which were really bad. We were told we must fight ignorance, poverty, and disease. Let us start with the first one. Ignorance. Ignorance is the lack of the ability to put meaning from words. You're illiterate.
You don't know anything.
You don't know anything. All you know is your village and your people.
And that's that.
That's it.
Okay.
But if someone is read or is reading, you get exposed to, like we said, like Semben Usman, God's beasts of wood, all the way to West Africa. You are transported, both in spirit,
through reading,
and in your mind.
Okay.
You begin to develop certain images. You begin to develop certain skills. you begin to relate with other people, all by yourself with a book. It broadens your mind. So what the independent schools did, and what we did after independence to really make sure that everybody goes to school was very good for this country. And you find the rate of literacy in this country is something to be proud about. Free primary education, for example. But you cannot have free primary education and Githunguri and everything else if you do not make available the books.
You're very correct.
So it's good for us to learn how to read, but then make available the materials throughout, not just in Nairobi, but throughout the country. And we can maybe discuss this a bit later.
Right.
The use of libraries and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've mentioned the three things, among them ignorance and poverty, and you've explained to us, this in terms of better understanding what reading is. So how is poverty coming in?
Now, let's look at the society as it is today.
All right.
And we have said the book is critical.
Okay.
Most of the people today are just aching a living. Mama wakes up in the morning, Mama Mboga somewhere. Baba wakes up in the morning, he is in construction or somewhere else. And they have a child, a toto, who is maybe about 10, 12, because reading must start early for that culture to take root. The last thing they are going to think about is the book. They are thinking about Sukuma Wiki. They are thinking about what they are going to eat. Even the fuel, where are they going to get the fuel, the makaa, the paraffin, and things like that. So, poverty in itself is detrimental to the reading culture. It does not facilitate you to have the wherewithal to provide for that child you want to read. So, in all its forms, poverty is bad for the reading culture and for the development of the nation. Because you are producing illiterate people, and that nation really of illiterates cannot catch up with the rest of the world, the speed at which the world is moving. Yes.
So do you feel like this is an area where the country needs to be focusing on mostly on how to deal with the issues of poverty? Because recently, not even quite really recently, but about 5 years ago, they've tried to construct the Kenya National Libraries around the community area. And yes, you're trying to also bring these books, and yes, you're trying to tell young people, most especially the young people, you need to read, you need to ensure that you get knowledge and information. But these young people are fixated on trying to make money to move from poverty. So should we actually start by focusing on how we can eradicate poverty before we move to reading? What is your feel on this?
Thank you very much, Doreen. But I think all these things go hand in hand.
Okay.
We cannot improve one and leave the other one. Now, we have moved from what we have just been discussing about the inability of a child to get a book to a point whereby we have got a big, wonderful library, the Kenya National Library up the hill.
Yeah.
One, in a huge country. Is it going to provide for the reading culture of Kenyan students? The answer is no.
Why so?
There is a segment which will benefit the one which is within the metropole, within Nairobi. How does this National Library cater for the student who is in Marsabit, who is in Wundanyi, who is in Mogadishu, or Samburu, or Isiolo? Now, we have to broaden this idea by establishing libraries throughout the country.
Okay. In different places.
Different places. Now, we have got all these counties. We have established, and it's good through devolution.
Yeah.
Why don't we have devolution in libraries? That they have to have a policy, a focused policy of establishing libraries everywhere. Every county must have. And two, beyond the fixed library, we need to have mobile libraries. This can be done by use of vehicles, where they can go to much more remote areas, deliver books, collect books, so that the reading culture is much more. And this used to happen sometimes back. I remember the Egerton University, Kenyatta University, try to take books and reading outside. I don't think it is happening
It's
right
not
now.
happening anymore.
It's not happening anymore. What has happened, instead of advancing, we have reached regress. The reading culture, I think, has not been given the importance it deserves. And as you said, a long time ago, people used to read more. Now they are reading less. You mentioned that maybe those who have now come out of schools, their priorities are different. They are not interested in a book. Maybe a quick look at the internet will provide you with a few pieces of information. And it's a very fast-moving world. But it's not making you a better person. The book makes you the person, the solid person. It's not the internet. No, it's the book. You've got to sit down and concentrate. But unfortunately, we are living in a very, very fast world. If you go to the road, you see how fast Kenyans are.
Very busy.
Very busy. But overtaking, moving. But we are not grounded.
Right.
We are not grounded.
And of course, we'll come to that a bit later. How busy? Because most people will say, you know, I'm busy, I can't get a book, I can't read. And we'll come back to that a bit later. But earlier on, you just defined for us what reading is, and you're trying to look at the reading culture. So when now we look at culture, what can you say from your point of view is culture, and how does that come into reading?
You see, culture is totality of a way of a people.
Okay.
Now, it involves the way you dress, your religion, your customs, in totality, your civilization. And here I'm defining civilization in a very broad way. Because everybody is civilized. Don't be told that some people are more civilized than others. No, we are all civilized. In our own, we are not going to the area, like I say in my book, or people who came to civilize Africans. We were civilized. It's the totality of the way of our people, the way they live. They are God or they are gods. It doesn't matter which way. And that totality presupposes this is a collective. It's many people, not one person. So when we are talking about the reading culture, we are talking about community at large. Not Max Kahindi and Doreen and somebody else who are reading. No, we are talking about, it's like a movement. Yeah, we are all involved in this, or many of us, if not all, many of us enjoy the book. So that is the reading culture. So we need more books. We need more libraries so that it can be all-encompassing. If we isolate ourselves to Macmillan, to National, or whatever in Nairobi, that is not a culture. It's localized. It's here. It does not involve Kisii. It does not involve Luoland or other places. We need this at the national level. And in that way, we are able to move together and have a very literate, a very knowledgeable population, because Kenya is moving. We want to move, all of us, at the same pace. Yes. All
right. So in the aspect of Kenyans saying, because you're talking about our own, people are busy. If they're not making money, they're doing this, they're doing that. And for young people, they will say, I'm in school, I have to read for my class. So what time do I have to actually read a book to get insight and knowledge? So do you feel like people are just busy getting and amassing a lot of information that is not constructive per se, all in the name of I am busy, but busy doing probably nothing in quotes?
I think, Doreen, we talked about priorities. Planning, organization. These are keywords in any civilization. Yes, we are busy. All of us are busy. From morning to the time we sleep. And sometimes we feel the 24-hour day is not enough. We need maybe 25, 26 so that we can fit maybe reading in that extra hour. But it won't happen. We have 24 hours in a day to work and to sleep. Now, what I would like to see, and this has been said by other people, when we are teaching our children about the reading culture, we must allocate time. They can look at the cartoons, they can look at whatever else they want to look at, but within a certain period of time. And then we say from this time to this time is reading time. And you provide them with the books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if this takes root at that level, nobody has to tell you when you're like you are reading now, and I read myself, because you have built this over time. I don't know how you got that culture to read whatever you're reading now, and you're still very busy. And I'm reading also, besides writing, I also read quite a bit.
Okay.
And I find the time, because I have to squeeze my time in a certain way, in an organized way, so that I have some time to read other people, to find out what they are doing. So if we inculcate this reading habit from very early, it will grow with us until we are old like you and me. But out there, you find there are people who the last thing they read was maybe the newspaper 3 days ago, and what they enjoyed most
even a month ago
was handicap.
Yeah.
They don't, they can't remember any other story. Maybe handicap or a murder or something greasy,
And that was it.
but not reading to get the information which is there in the newspaper in total. So there is that impatience, but it can only be cured by planning. Otherwise, you have someone like I play golf on the golf course for 4 hours playing a game, and you play today or maybe 3 times a week, but he does not have time to read a book, even 10 pages within that 1 week. Something is wrong somewhere. Yeah, it's on our planning. Yeah, and the way maybe we are brought up.
You're brought up. So key word is actually planning, you know, your time very well, regardless of how busy someone is. All right, now let's move to the e-books, because we can also sit here and say planning, but then again also there's really a rush to make money in this, you know, in this time, because everything as of now really requires money and money and money. So now the e-books, everything is online. We are moving to the online space, and the online space is taking shape of basically everything, of how we get information, of how information is disseminated, of what people do and what people are not doing. So the e-platforms, are they killing the traditional form of reading, the books that we would have traditionally, you know, the physical books? Because now you'll go and you like your book, even I can find it on the e-platform via the PDF. So is it killing? Is it coming to help? Is it killing the culture that we're trying to really revive? What are your thoughts concerning the e-platforms and the e-books?
Doreen, technology is something we cannot run away from.
Okay.
That's the world is the way the world is moving, and this is also affecting the reading culture, as it is affecting all aspects of our life. Everything. But the good thing is this: there is limitations to technology. What we see today is that, as I said, the very first world we are involved in. See, let's talk about students first.
Yeah.
A student goes to the computer, there's a topic he wants to research, and he just keys what he wants to see.
And that's it. Doesn't
maybe
explore.
2 paragraphs. And once he has a grasp of that, through a button, that's it, he has read.
He's finished.
He has read. Now, the technology we have in terms of availability of instruments to use is limited. The e-library is a very expensive thing. So that you won't read a certain book and you key and they say pay before you can access this book.
Yeah.
So there is the expenses involved, and even big libraries sometimes cannot buy those books and stock them for you, so that you go to the library next door at the University of Nairobi and get access to a computer and you key and you get the information. No, it's not that available. So to answer your question, is that the internet is not killing the culture, the reading culture. There's still room for the traditional library. And right now, if we move from the students to the older generation like myself, I would rather read the paper.
As opposed
What
to
is on
getting it
print.
online?
Yes, because this glare in front of me and the colors it has does not relate to me.
Okay.
I do feel I need to get that book and read it, not punch and see the glare in front of me. I feel I'm missing something in that manner. So one, the traditional library is therefore preserved, and reading is a question of the environment you are in, the subject matter that you are dealing with. It's also the background. Why do you want this information? And it also relates to age. Yeah, the older generation will not go and read books
online.
Online, no. We want to get hold of the book. When you finish, the traditional way, you fold the ear on top, you have a cup of tea, and you come back to it. So, but what I would like to say is that the two of them must go hand in hand. They must go hand in hand. If you look at my book, for example, The Wayward Vagabond, you key it on, and Amazon will provide it for you. It will only provide you with 6 chapters.
Only.
Now, you are getting into the mood of the story. You are getting involved. Chapter 6, whoop, you're blocked.
So what does that do to the reader? Do you feel like it makes them to want to get the physical book to finish the story, or just say, this is it for me?
This is what the limitations are. You enjoy there, but then you got to move backwards to the printed material. So unless you really have a lot of money so that you become a member of the Amazon e-library and you can read everything, and I don't think we have that kind of money. It's better that you go to Prestige Bookshop, you buy a book, finish the business, read it, and pass it on to somebody else, and to somebody else, and to somebody else. It will circulate. When you read the e-version of the book, it's only you. We talked about culture. The culture is passing on.
True.
You let the dad read it, pass it on to mama, pass it on to the child, and that is the culture. As you said, culture is not individualistic. The e-thing does not give you that cultural thing.
It's true.
No, it does not.
For you, just go key in the book and get it. And earlier on, we were talking about, reading online, and we're even saying that even on your phone, you can access this book. You just go download it and get it. But that brings a limitation in terms of concentrating, because you're there on your phone, you have downloaded this book, you're reading it, and then a message pops up on WhatsApp or the Instagram or on these social media platforms, then it limits your concentration span. So what would you say in terms of concentration, in terms of reading online via reading a physical book?
I would say that the moment you open those gadgets, even before you get to the book, you see something else which distracts you.
Which is already a distractor in itself.
It distracts you. There's a message which has come from a friend or whatever it is. And there is the element, as I said, of a disciplined mind, where you sit, you get the book, you open it, and you start taking notes. Or something like that, vis-a-vis the click of the button, where you are reading very quickly, you finish it, close the thing, and go. And in the meantime, the same instrument you are using has got so many other functions.
And sometimes you're not even finished reading what
you
it
do
is
not
you're
even
reading.
finish before there is a disturbance somewhere. So
you're distracted already.
Yeah, one, the skills you get by disciplining yourself, make you a better person, as we said, in terms of organization.
Even as an individual.
As an individual.
Okay.
And you the subject matter, you read in that book, you read later on, you say that these are the references. You know how, the way we used to do. You find a quotation, you look for the reference, and then from that reference, you look for that book, and you move on and on and on, and you feel like you have become an expert in that particular field. It promotes your self-esteem. Yeah?
Yeah,
You
true.
feel you are an authority. You can talk.
And you know what you're saying when
And
you're
you know
talking.
what you're saying. You become a better person. If
Yeah.
you are sent by the Kenya government as a diplomat somewhere to talk about certain issue like trade, you have gone through the books, you have gone through the treaties, you have gone through. You cannot get all those things through the internet.
Yeah.
No. You got to sit down, read them, imbibe them, understand them. Then when you stand there and talk and say,
You can
yes,
be able to interpret.
yes, this person knows what he's talking
Yeah.
about. You get that by sitting down, reading, concentrating, maybe taking notes until you feel you are an expert. Tell me one expert who became an expert by through the internet, other than
can't
Diego
think.
and his pole vault.
We can't even pinpoint.
You know, you
Yeah.
can't.
So now let's move back to the young adults, because they are the majority in arguably most countries, not even here in Africa alone. And a latest research by Geopol in 2015 indicates that only 20% of these young adults are the only ones that actually read. And this is just the newspapers and magazines. Yet you're calling these young adults our leaders of tomorrow, and we say that leaders are readers and they're not reading. What does that have to say about the other 80%? And in which direction are we heading?
Let me tell you, we are heading the wrong direction to answer that one first. In today's world,
Okay.
and I have got teenagers in my house.
Yeah.
The culture of reading is something which you have to force on them, and very few of them, because these children are not like the olden days where you used to talk and they listen to what you say. These days they answer back. They answer back. No.
They also feel very informed.
Yes, I remember the other day I gave Hemingway a small book, about 100-something pages to my son. I said, look, I want you to go through this by tomorrow evening. I talked to him actually this morning. Say, how far have you gone? And he said, well, not very far. Now, a week has passed. In the olden days, I would be caned. I give you instructions, you did not follow. So the 20% is something nature has got a way of selecting.
Okay.
A natural selection, like
Yes.
Darwin used to say.
Yeah.
There are those who will be selected by nature and they will enjoy. Like I was not forced by my father to read. No, I enjoyed it myself. And you cannot, they say, one person can take the horse to the water, but the 10 people cannot make it drink it if it does not want to drink.
Yeah.
So let us hope that in our trying to have our children read, we will get more success than 20%, not by beating them, but maybe I didn't read stories to my children when I was moving around as a diplomat so that they could find the joy of the stories. Now I'm trying to tell him to read at the age of 13, and he has developed other interests, the internet, the music.
Yeah.
It's not just a question of looking at things. Music itself, they put those things in their ear, and you find someone just moving around the house like a zombie.
That is what is enjoyable
Like
for
a zombie.
most of
But
them.
that's what he enjoys. You have to tell him it is not only that, there
Yeah.
is also this.
There's something else.
So if you can strike a rapport
Yeah.
at that level, and you provide the books, and they can listen to their music, like I used to enjoy my music, and I used to enjoy my reading, and I used to visiting friends. Yeah, I used to enjoy that also. So that you can have a well-structured, as we said, a well-organized way of thinking. We want to move from that 20% of people who are reading to 30 to
To a
40
higher
to 50,
percentage.
so that it becomes, like we said, cultural, common.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So from your point of view, also as a parent, and you've just said that, back in the day, a parent will tell you something and you will do it. Also because of the respect and the fear that you had for your parent, your mom or dad. But things have changed now. The young adults, even younger children, even in primary and high schools, they feel like, I can talk back at mom, I can talk back at dad. So do you feel like parents need to be more strict to their children, especially if we have to really bring back this kind of reading? Because like we said, reading is not just for leisure or pleasure, it's also very important in terms of intellect and getting insight. So do they need to be more strict to their younger ones?
Now here, Doreen, we are stepping into a very sensitive area of our society.
Okay.
Like, who are we? Who are we? You look, if you look at today's paper, and you see what parents are doing to each other,
Yeah.
to other people, you find most of the stories we are getting is a society which is really in disarray.
Okay.
A society in total, which is totally in disarray, from politics to homes, the family unit, which should be the main foundation for these children,
All right.
is already in problems. You find institutions. Marriage is a threatened institution.
Okay.
You find many single mothers, those who are married are divorcing,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So who is there to take care of these children? Who is there? Now, the ones maybe who are there to take care of the children, like we said before, are aching for a living.
Very busy.
Yeah. The cost of living is too high. You find people are complaining. Cost of living is too high. So you find the child living in isolation. You cannot leave this child in isolation, then later on try to discipline him.
Yeah.
No,
It won't work.
it will not work. You are going to face a lot of problems. If it's going to work, it's by grace of God. So I think we have to look at ourselves as a nation. Kenya, can we have less excesses of what we are doing as parents? Can we have civilized politics? Yeah? Can we have civilized parenthood?
Okay.
And then once we get these things, major things going,
Yeah.
and we talked about provision of jobs for our people.
Yes.
You cannot have a culture of corruption and employment at the same time.
Doesn't
No.
go hand in
It
hand.
does not go hand in hand. Corruption takes that money out, so that in that vacuum everybody falls in. Unemployment, etc., etc. And now, as we said, unemployment means poverty.
Yeah.
And poverty means disaster for the nation, and illiteracy, and all these things. So I would appeal to the government that let's get serious about corruption. First and foremost, let's punish these people severely, so that it does not pay to steal.
Because these things have a ripple effect in what
it-
you're also trying to talk about.
Of course. It's a snowball effect. Yeah, corruption will affect employment.
Yes.
Employment will create poverty.
Yeah.
Poverty will affect the relationship even in homes.
And
et
that
cetera, et
affects
cetera.
the culture
That
of
affects
reading.
the children, and the discipline is gone. The culture of reading
Reading
is
is
gone.
no more there.
We don't know where we're heading to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's look at another factor, and this is things to do with social joints and just having a good time with friends. And one would argue that because we're really trying to see how reading was in that time, which was so much compared to how it is now. And we've looked at a number of factors. Maybe people would say we are busy, there's the internet, and trying to make money and things such as that. But then also there's the aspect of social joints. And some would say that I don't have time to go read. Why? Because I want to hang out with my friends. We want to go and have a drink, sit at the bar, watch football. How do you feel that affects? Because from my own point, I would say also back in the day, people would also have those social joys. They will go and take alcohol and go, at the pub and enjoy time with friends and watch the football games. Now looking at now, why would we still say that that is also a factor that is affecting reading?
Doreen, my grandmother used to say that there's nothing new.
Okay.
It's only the manner in which it happens.
That is what makes it new?
Yes.
Okay.
We come to these distractions of enjoyment. The children want to hang out, or the teenagers, but even their fathers and their mothers. let's face
They're
it.
also hanging out.
In our days,
Yeah.
we had places to go to.
Okay.
You might not know there were things like Cameo, Starlight, Alliance. These were places for the evening. We used to go for dancing. And in the afternoon there were boogies, Koinange Street. I remember there was. We used to go there at 2 o'clock and dance until 6 o'clock, then we go home. And we enjoyed it, both boys and girls. We really enjoyed it. But it was infrequent. It was maybe once a week,
Yeah.
like on Saturday afternoon. Now these days, the business of hanging out is you leave the office, you go and hang out. Tomorrow you leave the office, you go and hang out.
And that is as early as even
7 days a
a
week.
week.
Sometimes it starts at 10 o'clock in the morning.
in the morning. That goes till evening,
It goes on until evening, sometimes throughout the night.
throughout the night.
Yeah. So once again, let's talk about the discipline of the person
Yeah.
and the age we are living in. What has happened to our values as a society? What has happened to our values as a society? Yes, every society must find a way of relaxing,
Yeah.
both for the aged and for the youth.
Yeah.
If you talk to maybe my grandfather, he would tell you beer was only taken when there is a special occasion.
Not how you feel like you want to take it.
No, I mean, from where? Because we knew we were going to go to so-and-so's place because the daughter is getting married, the son is getting circumcised, or something like that. There had to be a special occasion, and they will brew the beer, and everybody will come. Once that is over, it is over until some other time. Then there came the commercial
Yeah.
element of beer. It's a part of capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, even communism, the Russians drink like mad. So the commercialization of these things, a way of making money by the corporates, a way of making money by the owner of the pub, a way of making money by other people.
Yeah, just go on. Yeah.
Yeah. The commercialization element of it and the lack of discipline has made the society, I think, move in the wrong direction. Very negative direction.
Yeah.
But once again, it's the way we have brought up our children. So we were brought up our children.
Yeah.
My son says, I want 2,000 shillings to go to hang out with my friends. I give him the 2,000 shillings. If I don't give the 2,000 shillings, there's a war in the house. So we have to strike a balance somewhere, because later on when he gets employed, and the friends, the peer group is there, they will move in that direction. So once again, is the national psyche. Yeah. Is there something wrong in this country? Who has not done the homework? Is it the church? Is it the schools? Is it the parents? Is it the government? But is it a combination of these things that things have not gone the way they should go?
Okay.
Like I would ask you, if you go to your village, and I'm sure you come from a certain village or from a certain
Community area.
Within Nairobi, I don't know which direction,
Yeah.
you look around and you find the number of churches you have and the number of bars you have.
Yeah.
It will shock you. In equal measures, the bars are a lot for our parents and our uncles and others.
Yeah.
The churches are there, but what kind of a name are the churches having? I was reading about a church which I respected very much the other day, and it is splitting up, and I don't know, money this and money that, and this, preacher that.
Yeah.
So in totality, we can't say this particular segment of society is leading the charge in giving us better children, better teenagers who will tomorrow be our leaders. No, we have already poisoned our leaders today. I don't know who is going to be president in about 10, 20 years' time, but I pity him.
Yeah. So it's also a question of values in our society.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And then just still sticking on the factors, and most especially as you try to incline to the younger generation, and some would also say that most of our African writing is boring compared to the Western. I know earlier on we talked about, that more people are really embracing the Western and what is being written by the authors from the other side, as opposed to our own writing. And some would say that our African writing, not just a question of being relatable, because that we tackled, but now they're saying that it is boring. It's just not interesting to me. I read it and I'm just not finding anything exciting. Nothing is interesting. What do you make of that?
I would say, to some extent, it's a bit true.
Okay.
Because we hang on to a society of 1960s. 1960s, where you have going down River Road, etc., etc. And the society has moved, as I said, because of technology from there. and people want to read something different. Now, I present to you my book,
Okay. The Wayward Vagabond.
The Wayward Vagabond. This book breaks with that tradition. You ask me how. When I launched this book the other day
Yeah.
at the United Kenya Club, I told the
Okay.
people, I've given you a book which is different in terms of content. First, because I'm not just tackling the ills of the present where everybody is tired of corruption,
Yes.
of murders and things.
Yeah.
I'm taking you, transporting you to a different world altogether. Transporting you to an age where white men came to this country or to Africa and decided to civilize Africans through Christianity and commerce. Of course, I have said it is a lie.
Yeah.
It is a lie. And the leader of the pack was called David Livingstone. Someone we think is a saint.
A good person.
And a good person. No, he wasn't.
Came with good intentions.
He wasn't a good person. So I'm trying to provoke you in this way. This saint we have always thought about, how come he has become a vagabond,
Yeah.
a wayward vagabond, and whose intention is not the welfare of the Africans, but is the destruction of Africans. So I'm provoking your mind and bringing you a new skill in terms of thinking, that we can challenge that which there is and create something better out of it, just like our lives.
Yes.
Yes.
So we are actually in agreement that, you know, it's not just the problem of reviving a reading culture. It's also the fact that some of our works are not interesting for us.
Some,
Not all.
Not all.
So
If you
some
want
of
to
our
read good stuff, there's a lot of good stuff from Ngugi, from Sabine Osman, and a lot of young writers who are now coming in this country,
Yeah.
and in Uganda, and in Nigeria, and elsewhere. If you look at Peter Kimani's books, for example, they are contemporary, and they are nice to read. So we are moving from the old box into something new. Yes, and I think I'm also in the charge. You must read this book to know what I'm talking
What
about.
you-
And
what
if
you're
you want an
saying.
excerpt from it, I will tell you.
Yeah.
I can read it for you.
All right. So we've just said that some of our works are actually not that interesting. So for such kind of authors, what would you say? What would you say to them in terms of making them more interesting and appealing? What do they need to do?
The people who wrote at that particular time in the 60s and 70s mirrored what they saw. Mirrored what they saw. The writers who are writing today, including you and others,
Yeah.
must now tell us something new.
What we are seeing
What
now.
we are seeing now.
Okay.
The writing is a question of age and circumstances. Now, if there is something new happening now, if there is something we want to challenge,
Yes.
then let's do so with the here and now. Now, if one can ask, then why have you written about the 19th century?
Yeah. Those are things that happened back in the time.
Yeah, where have you moved
How
so
is it
far back?
interesting for me now?
Yes, because we must start somewhere.
Yeah.
My questioning here is that the values we have
Okay.
from these days of David Livingstone,
Yeah.
we have carried up to now. If Dorian, you have some dogs and you want to train,
Yeah.
they go through a lot of pain. Before you tell it sit, or a horse to jump or sit down, or even lions
True.
and whatever in circus,
Okay.
they go through a lot of pain. The Africans were taken through that pain by colonialism
At that
to
time.
mold us so that you are told sit and you sit, stand and you stand, run and you ask how fast or whatever it is. Now, this is the challenges that we have.
Yeah.
Can we move from that trained incapacity to think?
To something different.
Yes, we have been trained not to think at all,
Okay.
but to follow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, my Messiah. Yes, sir. And values, whether it is, sorry to say so, even in the church, do you know that some people used to worship in Latin? They don't know what they're saying. Or they are saying Ave Maria. What is Ave Maria? You don't know. But this is the way you have been trained.
And that's how you follow.
That's the way, and you are told you're going to heaven now. And you Ave Maria, whatever it is.
Okay.
So the creation, as I said,
Yeah.
of a new African, what we call the African Renaissance, it is very important. We let us start washing this, removing the shackles from the past. And this is an attempt to remove the shackles so that we can model a new African,
Yeah.
who is conscious of himself, the circumstances, who can face the world at his own terms,
Yeah.
not being dictated.
All right.
Yeah, that is the new writer that we want today.
People that can actually tell us what they are seeing as of now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, what is wrong, how we can put it right, and what our future should be like. You can predict into the future. You know, George Orwell, 1994. That was many years before, or Nostradamus, who used to tell us what will happen to all many years to come. We can create a positivity about ourselves.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and earlier on we talked about the research by Geopol showing that it's only 20% of young adults are the ones that are reading. But then also there's another research that shows that Kenya, amongst the the African continent, this is one of the country in the African continent which has a lot of literacy compared to other African countries. Is it something that as a country we need to pride ourselves in, that at least, you know, in as much as we talk about reading and as much as we don't read as much, and in as much as we have a smaller percentage of readers in terms of the young people, but at least we are somewhere up there compared to other African countries. Do we need to pride ourselves in that?
I'll answer you in a different way.
Okay.
If you find a group of blind people and one has got one eye, you know he's king. You know he's king.
Because he's got one eye.
Because he's got one eye. So Kenya is this among these blind people called the third world. Let's not just talk about Africa. The third world.
Third world.
Where the reading culture is really poor. But if you look at statistics, we are slightly ahead of others. And I'll tell you why. Some of the big giants in this country,
Yes.
say South Africa.
Yeah. They were considered as one of the developed countries in Africa?
Yes. What development? For years on end, children never went to school. No. They were involved in the fight for independence. To end,
And that is what was on their
apartheid.
mind.
Yes, that is what was on their mind. Rioting and things like this. The Boers were not interested in training African teachers who could then inculcate the reading culture. If you look at the statistics of education in South Africa during the Boer regime, amongst the Africans, pathetic. Now you rule out a giant in Africa. You look at Nigeria.
Yeah.
From the time they got independence,
Yes.
it was coup after coup after coup, secession in Biafra, etc., etc. So where was the reading culture? It's a question of
was
survival.
reading?
So this society versus this society, and I'm afraid up to now, unless they get their act together, there's still that element of instability.
Yeah.
In a country where there is instability, the reading culture does not exist.
It
and
doesn't
yet
thrive.
you find wonderful writers in Nigeria. The Chinua Achebe, the Wole Soyinka,
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
They are from that country. And Nigerians are many in terms of population.
Yeah.
But you should see the poverty level.
Very high.
I remember when I was working in Nigeria, there was a census like the one we have just conducted.
Yeah.
And when the figures came in, they are also divided by what the nation, the GDP of a country, to find the income per capita. And it so happened that it reflected that the Nigerians are very poor. They had earned this much, the population was this much. So if you divide by population on the GDP level, they were very low. Yeah? So Babangida, who was then the president, said, no. But supposing you reduce the population, it will increase
The GDP.
the income per capita
Yeah.
of everybody. So while the population was about 140 million, it was reduced now to about 130, 110. And all of a sudden, this increased the income per capita. It shows you the Nigerians are poor. That's what the statistics were showing. Now, this is a giant in Africa.
Yeah.
You go to Ethiopia,
Yeah.
another giant in Africa in terms of population.
Yeah.
And during the reign of Haile Selassie,
Yeah.
this was a feudal society. A feudal society where only about 5% of the people were literate. And he was very happy.
Only 5%
Yeah, feudal
were
king.
literate.
Yes, 5%.
So the entire 95%, nothing.
Yeah, so when Mengistu came, it doesn't matter how many bad things Mengistu did, and he did a lot. But what he did is to command that there will be classes for everybody in the morning and in the afternoon. So one section of society, regardless of age, and especially the youth, used to go for school from maybe 7 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and the other section in the afternoon. You have seen what has happened to Ethiopia since then. Literacy has come up, and they are growing and growing. Things have changed from the days of Mengistu. They are better organized now. But as I said, Kenya cannot pride itself. It's only that it has one eye amongst many blind people. We should be comparing ourselves with others who are with us when we got independent, like Singapore, Malaysia.
And how far they've gone.
How far have they gone? Both in terms of economy and the culture of reading. And you cannot have countries developing at that fast pace they are developing without reading culture, where you get the skills, the organization we talked about, the analysis, etc. of life and things. That's the only way we can move. We cannot talk about Vision 2030 without producing the people who are to move it forward.
Okay. And so obviously we'll come back a bit later just to also understand the aspect of film and books. You know, how interesting, because some will also say that for me, I'm just waiting for this book to be a film. So what is the difference? We'll come back to that a bit later. But for now, I just want to engage Ram to see what Kenyans are saying on the other side of studio concerning what we've been discussing, and also specifically about the reading culture. Which way to go? Ram, what do you have for us on the other side?
All right, remember our SMS line is on 20154 is the number. It is up and running. Make sure that we start with the word Channel 1 as we talk about reading and culture. Tell us what you think about it. If you have questions for the former ambassador, and if at all you have any comments and opinions, start with the word Channel 1. Tell us your name and where you're watching this broadcast from, and we will be continuing to sample them up even as we continue. Remember, the hashtag also on Twitter is Good Morning Kenya. Tag me at Ram Aguko, also at Doreen Arange. Our official station handle is at KBC Television. Now let's take a look at what some of the tweets there. First things first, at F. Woody says, very true, we don't have reading culture. Investing in proper or stocked public libraries in major towns will help. That is concerning how much stock and how much investment we are putting into our libraries. Next tweet at Francis Mbugwa. There is this joke that if you want to hide anything precious, put it between the book pages. Yeah, and I remember also there was a story that was once told that I had about one gift that was given to one person when on the day of his wedding, a man decided to gift his wife with a car key and put it inside the book. But I don't know your thoughts on that. Do we really find the right gifts when it comes to, you know, is it a culture that we do not like reading so much so that if someone can hide a gift for us in a book, we would never find it?
Just before you continue to, what Kenyans are saying on Twitter concerning this reading culture, obviously a discussion we've been having. I don't know what you think about that statement, because this is something that has been said over time. If you want to hide something, especially for us Africans, hide it in a book. And that will make me want to ask you, what are you reading? Which book are you reading? Or are you amongst the few Africans that we are talking about, that if you have to hide something, let's hide it for you in a book?
Okay.
Challenge.
There's this book that has been actually trending for a while now. At some point, some may call me outdated, but I'm reading a few books for teenagers.
And that's online?
No.
Okay.
It's actually a hardcover book for teenagers. How teenagers should be can be able to be, to live up to the expectations of the current world and the current society. That's the book that I'm reading so far. At home, we normally have a library where we have different books, and sometimes I can pick one or two from this book. So I'm reading one book concerning teenagers because my interest is in raising the young people. As of now.
Ram, I just feel like you're really, just trying to champion for yourself about that, the kind of book you're reading. But I won't.
But I've got to do that.
I I won't comment personally. Let me allow the ambassador to tell us what he thinks about that, because this is something that most people would say, especially for us Africans. If you really want to hide something important, hide it in a book. And also there was a story I once told that there was this young man who wanted to marry the daughter of a very, very prominent and rich person, and he decided that he wanted to gift them for their wedding. So he put a check inside a Bible, but because he knew that we don't read and we don't love reading, he wouldn't open it. And then later on, a couple of months later, he actually comes and asks the man, "Did you ever open the Bible?" And the man says, "I've never touched it." Then the father says, "Then bring back my Bible." And he opens it and the check is there. So actually, he hid something inside a book. So do you actually agree with the statement that if you really want to hide something good for us Africans, hide it in a book?
I think, like we said, if you find that only 20%
Yeah.
of, say, the teenagers onto the book, for the adults is even less.
It's even less than the 20%.
Is even less than the 20%. The story I had is slightly different because, yes, there was a wedding,
Yeah.
and this father-in-law, the father of the lady,
Yeah.
put in a very big check in the Bible,
Yes.
and he gave them as a gift.
Yeah.
Then he came back about 2 months later, and he says, and he did not take it very far. He's just opened the zip,
Just
and
there.
there it was. And he asked this brother-in-law, well, among the gifts I gave you was the
son-in-law
Bible.
now.
Have you been reading the Bible? He said, yes, religiously. Okay, he said, oh, you bring it. There's a mass I want to show you. And then he brought the Bible. It had not been. So he unzipped the thing, and there was a check. And he says, "Why do you lie to me? I gave you a gift, and this was a lot of money." Then he says, "You follow the instructions of the Bible, and your days will be better. Now, since you do not want to follow the instructions," he took the check and put it in the pocket. Now you can't tell him, sorry, I was lying for this and that. But I think it's just a way of showing you that
All right.
the readership
It's very low.
is very low. And if it
Okay.
is 20% for the teenagers who have more time to read, what about the parents, and as you said, who are making a living? I will tell you something which I did. When my book came out, I took it to Karen Club. I'm a member.
Yeah.
And we are allowed to put the books there so that the golfers, when they come to sign,
Okay.
they can buy and go and read.
Yeah.
I put 10.
Yeah.
I think only 4 have gone up to now.
Imagine.
Yeah.
All right, hold it just right there. We'll come back to finish up on that a bit later. Baram, what else do we have on that side, Twitter, on what Kenyans are saying concerning reading culture?
All right, there was one more tweet there. It's going to come up shortly.
Yeah.
All right, that is at Ojiambo says, if you want to make a difference in this country, people must invest in the culture of reading. Yeah, concerning how much investment we make when it comes to the reading culture, does it take the country to the next level? Brian King, I usually find it difficult to start writing a book, leave alone reading one. All right. Now this for the book writers, and the question is, how can someone even write the book? Because so many people have the desire to even have a book of their own. Writers normally have a writer's block. What do you do even that? Just as a reminder, Mwajuma Joyce, is the reading culture in Kenya declining? And that's the question. Is it declining? One more tweet. I don't know if there is yet another tweet. Is there? All right.
All right.
At Waria Duncan, digital platforms have made it hard for me to even think of reading a physical book. And most people normally find it easier to go get a book online, find an article online, read it, as compared to getting a hardcover book, a hard copy book. Is it easier? And actually there are statistics, facts were also given. A study was made concerning books when it comes to reading, and the statistic was showing that it is easier for someone to comprehend, understand, and grasp content that they read on a hardcover book as opposed to reading it online. Well, those are just a few of the SMS and the tweets that we have so far, but keep tweeting. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. The SMS line is on. Start with the word channel 120154. Over to you, Doreen.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ram, of course, for that amazing feedback from our viewers, just really showing us, you know, our reading culture and where we are headed. Are we really heading in the right direction? Do we need to do something? That is obviously a conversation we've been having. And Ambassador, just before we finalize, just in about 30 seconds, tell us your parting shot concerning reading culture, not just for a young population or a younger generation, but as a, for us as a country as a whole. What do we need to do to actually ensure that we revive this culture for once and for all?
Doreen, as we come to the end of this, I think we should look at the advantages of reading, both for the younger generation and for ourselves. And I have a few things here to mention. One, that reading stimulates the mind. And as the gentleman here there has just said, you find more stimulation by looking at the text, the written text on paper, than you would find on the net, and we had discussed this before.
Yes, yes.
It's more stimulating, it's more engaging. Now, number two, reading adds to your knowledge. And as we said before, the more knowledgeable you are towards an expert, the more self-confident you become, and it's good for your ego, even, so that wherever you go, you feel you are making sense. Now, it also improves the memory.
Which is very important.
Reading culture improves the memory. With a good memory, you're going to go places. It is good for you. It also expands your vocabulary.
Okay.
Unlike in the movies where you hear sounds and you don't know how the word looks like, it includes the vocabulary, concentration, and focus. It makes you more analytical. It gives you more thinking skills. And it also gives you writing skills. The person who wanted to become a writer, you cannot become a writer unless you are reading quite a bit and knowing what other people you learn by looking at what other people are doing. Then you can copy.
Okay, and that's a good place to end it. Just right there in terms of ensuring that it grows your skills, you become a better person, your intellect, your insight is up there. I believe that there's really we've really learned quite a lot in terms of reading and just ensuring that we revive our reading culture, not just as young adults, but as you know, as a country as a whole. And this is a discussion we've been having right here with Ambassador Max Kahende, who is also a diplomat, a former diplomat rather, as well as an author. Authored the book which has just been published. This is The Wayward Vagabond, a book that he really says quite interesting that you will also have to get it. So this has just been quite an interesting discussion. Ram, I don't know if you have something for us before we wrap it up.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who sent in their messages, their tweets, and we appreciate your feedback. SMS is still on, but keep tweeting and keep sending those texts. 20154 is the number. Start with the word channel 1, and we will be, sure to appreciate everything that you're doing. But keep the conversation going. Remember, there is just one more at I Am Blue Ink saying, is there a problem if anyone prefers visual content other than reading? Well, the ambassador has just given his feedback concerning that visual content is quite interesting. People who like watching videos, for example, as compared to reading, if you can get the same content in watching a visual content, is it preferred? Well, keep the SMSs coming. But on my end, I'll just like to wrap it up. Thank you very much for keeping it. Good morning, Kenya. And I'd like to wrap it up with a quote here by Ray Bradbury. He says that you don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. Just get people to stop reading them. You don't have to burn books. If you are to destroy a culture, make people to stop reading these books. My name is Ram Aguko. May God bless you and may God bless the work of your hands. Over to you, Doreen.
Right, and Ram himself, the man of quotes. I was wondering why weren't you even finishing with the quote, but you just finished up with an interesting quote. But also, again, for our viewers, you've been watching, interesting feedback. We say thank you so much for watching. This has been Good Morning Kenya. We've had interesting interviews, discussions. We'll do this again tomorrow, same place, same time. Be sure to tune in again tomorrow. Of course, from me and on behalf of the entire team that made this show a success, we again say thank you so much for watching. Till tomorrow, have a beautiful morning.